Wow, well, it's been very interesting watching current events and a lot of the streams online on the things that are happening in the United States. And so I thought with that, and Hawaii will have its own protests this weekend, I thought it'd be kind of nice to talk about race and discrimination in Hawaii. More specifically, I want to talk about how the dynamics of race tend to play out in Hawaii, the discrimination that exists. I know it's paradise, right? But it's here, how that kind of works out, as well as some of my own personal experiences on the mainland and what that kind of taught me and I was able to bring back to Hawaii and now sort of use in my adult life. If you get nothing else from this video, I hope that you understand that how we view race in Hawaii is completely different from the mainland. And that's why it's been so interesting to watch all the streams and what people have to say, because it's so different. It's hard, I think, for your average local person to really understand, because we just didn't grow up in that type of dynamic, that type of environment. And so what I'm talking about is solely based on my own observations and experiences. So I do not, of course, speak for everyone in the state of Hawaii, nor do I speak for Native Hawaiians, because that's an entirely separate issue. But I really think that the dynamics of race in Hawaii is so unique, and I'm pretty sure that there are sociologists who have a lot of insights into how things work and how things have changed over time. So I think if you're interested more in the details of sort of race and how it works socially here in this particular state, I'm sure there are articles and books that can satisfy your curiosity. But if you never lived in Hawaii for a long period of time or grew up here, it's really hard to explain how race ties into our culture, just everyday life. Because if you walk down the street, you might see 6 to 8 people that don't look like you, and that's normal. Hawaii is often described as a melting pot, where we have all these different groups who come to Hawaii and it kind of just mixes up into this big stew, and it somehow it works, right? And when we tend to, I think, tolerate each other, I don't know what the right word might be, but we tend to kind of tolerate each other and get along, because, you know, at the end of the day, we're stuck on this island and we have to coexist together. But I do think there are underlying racial tensions that exist in Hawaii, of course, and maybe in other places as well. But I think we definitely have that here, and yet we somehow manage to hold it together. Because of course there's biases towards every race here in Hawaii, but Hawaii tends to have a particular bias towards Caucasian. And I don't know if it's like a big secret or something and we can't talk about it. Because if you come from the mainland and you spend any amount of time here, it's pretty obvious, you know, like, it's not a secret. We have the term haole, which is a term used for Caucasian. I mean, that should mean something, right? And I think the roots of this bias stem back to at least the plantation days, if not even further back, where the Native Hawaiians first encountered foreigners. So if you didn't know, a lot of Hawaii's humor is based on racial jokes and stereotypes. It's one of the things that I actually like about Hawaii, because we don't take it seriously. We laugh at everyone, and everyone is fair game. You know, Caucasians are portrayed a certain way, Japanese, Chinese, Koreans, Filipinos, Portuguese, like everyone has their own mannerisms, everyone has their own, you know, speech, and we just make light of it all. Now, obviously, these stereotypes are not true, and it doesn't identify everyone in that particular group, but that's sort of the joke. And I'm really curious to see how this type of humor changes, especially during these times, because, you know, it's one of the things that I like about the Hawaii culture, that we get to joke around a little bit with each other, and that so many people are mixed that it's hard to take it seriously, because you say something, but then you realize, like, oh yeah, I'm actually like 25% Chinese or something. And growing up in Hawaii, race is a big deal, but also not really a big deal. But it's not as polarizing, I think, as it is on the mainland. Now, I know people who do not like people from the mainland for whatever reason. Maybe they had a bad experience, or maybe they just were taught that from their parents, to just not like people who are different from them. I wouldn't say that I had a bias growing up, but we definitely had a lot of jokes going around, not just my house, but really just in the media in general here. So you just joke around with your friends and all of that. And I'm pretty sure it affects you though as a kid. And because of how isolated Hawaii tends to be, we don't really have a bigger perspective on a lot of the racial dynamics that happen, especially in the United States, but even across the world. What really helped me to change my perspective, or at least begin to grow it, are some of my experiences on the mainland when I went away for college and I had to live there on my own. So I want to quickly talk about 3 experiences that I had that really kind of began to make things stir a little bit. The first experience was I remember walking into a restaurant with my roommates, and it was like this nice old school like diner, and we walk in, and my roommates, 3 of them Caucasian, of course I'm Asian American. I walk in there, and I remember everyone in the restaurant just stopping and looking at me, or us, but really looking at me. And like it was like a scene out of a movie where everyone just stops. I feel like the band, and there's no band, but it's like if there was a band, the band would have stopped playing, or the piano player would have stopped playing in the saloon. Everyone's looking, and it was kind of unusual because I didn't know what that was. And I remember that experience because I think for the first time I felt like nobody else looked the same as me. Because in Hawaii, there's a lot of Asian Americans here. You go outside, there's probably four different types of Asian Americans. You just walk around, they're all around here. But in the mainland, in Colorado, it was not like that. The second experience I had was when I was at school. I was working out, and I remember this student came up to me while I was working out, and he said, I don't know if it was like joking or not, but he's like, did you know that you look like Jackie Chan? And I thought, I don't think I look like him, nor am I Chinese, but thank you. And I just let it go because, again, in Hawaii, we just let that stuff kind of go. But the third experience I do remember, and I think this is when I began to realize how different it was being in Hawaii versus on the mainland, and how this race thing kind of plays out. Not quite fully, but at least kind of making me aware that not everywhere, of course, is like Hawaii. I was invited to this Asian American conference, and of course, we're from Hawaii, so some of us went, and we met other students who were Asian American, but they grew up in Colorado or in other parts of the mainland. And interacting with them and talking with them, it was clear that they were not like us, and we weren't like them. But as I got to talk to them about their experiences growing up, and we throw in some jokes here and there because, we're from Hawaii, right? And they were not laughing. It was really strange. It was almost like they took being Asian American really seriously. And for us, it was just like, well, whatever, And seeing that difference and understanding that difference, it was very shocking to me because, for us in Hawaii, we're all locals, right? Kind of doesn't really matter. You grew up here, you're local, we make jokes, that's it. But I guess their experience on the mainland, where they were actually a minority group, living in a Caucasian community or whatever community that they're in, it must have been so different. And whether they were treated differently or not, I'm not sure, but it was so interesting to interact with people who, yeah, we're both Asian American, but we're very different, and we identify with that pretty differently. But through all of these experiences, I didn't let it establish or reinforce any biases I might have had towards any particular group. Instead, what I did was I went to school, I worked, and I interacted with people that were all different from me. And I think through those experiences, that helped to sort of break down any biases or anything that I might have. Because I think the more that you interact with people that are different from you, you start to see them for the people that they actually are. And you sort of, if you do judge them, it's based on their character, their individual character, and not based necessarily on how they look. And grouping people in these huge groups, you just interact with them and you see, okay, this person, this individual person, they act this way. Okay, so that's great, or maybe not so great. And I think that helped me, at least coming from Hawaii again, where it's so different from the mainland. And I really am glad that I had that experience. And where I think this really helps me is now that I'm back in Hawaii, I do work with people from the mainland, and it's fine. It's not like a big deal. I know there's some local people, they struggle with working with some people from the mainland. But for me, it doesn't really matter. I don't really care if you're local or you're from the mainland. If we're working together, we have to interact together. Again, I'm just viewing you as a person, and how are you as a person? What is your character? What are things that you are interested in? Those are more important to me. My experiences away from Hawaii, I think, really helped me to figure that out in my own life. And this by no means is a comprehensive overview on race and discrimination in Hawaii. That would probably take a long time. But I just wanted to comment on this because it's definitely an issue now in the media. It's been very enlightening to see things kind of unfold and people share their stories, because we don't get a lot of that here. We have different issues here in Hawaii, but not the same ones. And being so isolated, it's hard, I think, for your average local person to identify with what's going on the outside. By outside, I mean out of Hawaii. So on the mainland, it's hard, I think, for us to identify with what's going on. I mean, we see it and it's like, oh, what is this? But I don't know if we quite understand. And it's not because we're totally oblivious and don't care. I think it's more that things are just different here for us culturally, with just all the different groups that happen to be in Hawaii. So I'm very much interested to see how all of this turns out. I hope that the protests this weekend in Hawaii are peaceful. I think there's going to be at least 2. I hope that they're going to be peaceful. They should be okay since they're going to Waikiki, and it's going to be in the daytime, so it should be okay. I don't expect any looting or anything like that, but we'll have to see. So anyway, thanks for watching this video, and aloha.